All right, so at this point, we're really ready to kind of, finish this model up, right? We did some kind of extra sculpting with our line and our drag dots. And I do want to spend a minute or so kind of exploring that with you guys one more time really quickly just to remind you, right? But then we're going to do a little bit of image-based stuff and a little bit of cloth sculpting. So at this point, of course, I'm in sculpting mode. I select the saddle because that's what we want to work with. And I'll just turn the body off for the moment just so we can focus on, sculpting here. And of course, we go 5, right? Because 5 is our quick key for sculpt mode, right? And of course, one of the things that we saw a little bit the other day is just with draw, we can go to stroke and we can switch our stroke to all kinds of different stuff, right? Default space is usually on, and that's kind of the normal way that your stroke will work. It's kind of your normal paint, right? You just kind of move your cursor and it paints like you'd expect it to. Everything else gives it different functionality, different options, right? So just keep that in mind, right? We've got these other ones here. So drag dot. Now, you can also go to your brush and you can play with hardness, right? Particularly if it's your draw brush. And that will allow you, if you wanted to kind of make, these little rivets. So these are really cool and makes it really easy to do kind of buttons and rivets. You can, of course, plug a texture into this, right? So if you really wanted to apply a texture, you can to even your drag dot stroke. So if you wanted this to be like, say, like a Phillips head screw or flathead screw shape, find a cool texture that mimics that. And then you can, of course, apply it. So drag dot, quite cool for this stuff, right? Pretty good at doing little rivet details, right? Drag dot. Hardness makes them harder, so you see how kind of it sharpens the edge there. So those are just some of those neat features that Blender has built in and they're really easy to use. Of course, if I want, I can go back to line, and I could switch. Actually, we could probably set this to space, because I think I would want to use either crease or draw sharp with line, right? And that would give me the ability, if I wanted to come in here and just, I could draw like a little line through there, right? In fact, at this point, I think I'd make that strength a little harder, so it kind of just pushes in a little bit more. But see how a line just lets you kind of drag out a line. So really part of everything I want to show you on this was, of course, you can use images to sculpt, and that's awesome and really important. But there's actually just some really cool stuff you can do with just the different strokes, right? So remember, line stroke, really cool. Drag dot stroke could be really cool. Technically, you can even go as far as just having your space stroke on and then playing with spacing, right? And you can actually kind of do like threading to a certain extent, right? So there's some cool stuff there. We're not going to worry about that on this one. There's only so much time we have left this term. But line, drag, dot, we even saw a bit of how masking can do some cool stuff. We use this to get masks. And you notice how you don't even have to use that with masks, right? So your mask even can use these, right? If I turn mask on, and you'll notice I can do drag dot with mask. So I could drag dot for masks if I wanted to, right? So keep in mind that these strokes are available for all your painting tools and all your or just about all your sculpting tools. So the stroke feature is actually pretty universal when it comes to sculpting and painting in Blender, which is awesome. It's just really, really cool. So that just give us a little bit of extra neat stuff we could do with those, right? And now we're at that point where we probably just want to do some sculpting of some kind of fabric folds here. And once again, that's where I can probably go back to my draw brush. And I probably want something very specifically, maybe leathery, fabric-y a little bit more here. So I think I'm definitely going to use Stencil for this, right? Instead of just apply a texture to it. So I'm going to go back to draw, and I'll probably make that a little shorter. You go to the texture palette, because we just want space to be on like normal. We go to texture palette, right? So view plane is usually what I have on by default for my sculpting stuff. That gives you kind of just the normal, it sculpts based on your view, right? And that's honestly a lot of the time what you want. But if you click on this, you will see that there are some other ones here. We're not going to focus on this much, but there is Stencil, right? Stencil. And we turn Stencil on. That's going to set it up so that when I actually load an image in, I'll be able to see the image. I'll be able to rotate, scale, move the image. And whatever I paint across will sculpt with that. Now remember, in stock Blender, you have to kind of load in your texture. I feel like when they get the asset browser up and running fully, which is going to be maybe 2.93 or 3.0 for Blender, that'll be a little easier. bPainter actually does give you a texture browsing menu that's really cool for painting at least. But we'll go here, and we'll go to kind of the little red checkerboard down here, right? And we just go New. And that brings up this ability to load a texture in, and we can go Open. And then we just have to really go to kind of where we have any textures we might want at, right? So I just kind of have to find where I've put some textures at. Let's see if there's any good in here. Actually, that'll probably work. It could be leather. It could be whatever you want it to be, right? But maybe go back out one and just see if there's something cool in the stencils to work from. I do have leather there, but I kind of feel like the fabric will work a little better. All right, so go back up one. Remember, you can also change this from list to thumbnails. That way you can actually see the textures. Let's grab fabric. There we go. And of course, we go to texture, and we'll see it's right here. Texture. And of course, remember, right mouse button will move it. Control right mouse button will rotate it. Shift right mouse button will scale it. Of course, I can make my brush size a little bigger. And then we just kind of start to sculpt a bit of kind of whatever fabric we want in here. And you can make it more subtle with, having your strength down lower. Remember, you can Alt to move it, Control Alt to rotate it, so you can kind of adjust it. And in this case, if I had something that had some more distinct features in it, this would make even more sense. But I don't have a lot of great textures loaded on this machine here, so go with what we got. There we go. Just second, just kind of sculpt some nice little bit of kind of fabric detail there. If I wanted to, you could actually hide these pistons kind of the shapes. That's not a problem. You could hide those if you want to. It'll work even with multi-res. But in this case, it's okay. I can kind of sculpt around them a little bit. But you see, with the stencil, it's painting exactly the image that you're sculpting, right? The stamp feature, where you just plug a texture on with view plane, right? That's really just going to keep dropping it down, right? It's going to take this whole image and paint. It's going to kind of keep taking the whole image, and it'll sculpt it here, sculpt it here, sculpt it here, and kind of overlap. So much better when you have a really, really high noise, like freckly kind of effect you want. If you're trying to get more of an exact fabric, stencils work better for that. And that'll just give us that nice little bit there. But remember, just go to texture. You can switch your mapping type to stencil to get that. I'm going to go back to view plane. And if you want to turn your texture off, click X right there. And you see how it's empty now? If you go to the browser, though, the texture's still there. So whatever textures you do load in will be available here, right? So they will be available. It's just that we've temporarily turned it off until we select it again. Then you see it's available. So X just kind of turns it off, right? And that gave us kind of a little bit of fabric texture there. Now, if we want to, our Crease Brush can do a pretty good job of fabrics, right? So I can kind of come in here and do a little bit of creasing with our Crease Brush to kind of get some kind of little fabric folding. So push comes to shove, your Crease Brush will work pretty well for doing some fabric folds if you want it to, right? But remember, one of the things that's really cool about Blender, and it actually beat ZBrush to it by just a little bit, is it actually has a cloth brush, right? There is a brush that looks like a kind of purplish, light purple, violet kind of cloth right here. And if you turn that on, you can go to the wrench screwdriver, and you'll see that there's controls in here. Now, simulation era, I like to set to dynamic, right? And then we'll probably switch the deformation to, say, like pinch perpendicular. But there are several features there. And you see what this can do as we start to sculpt it around is it actually can do a little bit of fabric folding effects. Right? So it's actually running cloth simulation in this area. Now, believe it or not, you can actually use strokes with this as well. So if I go up to stroke, and I switch to, like, say, anchor or drag dot or even line, you'll notice that you can actually use your strokes with your cloth brush also. And so what you could do is you could actually go in and do a bit of a pass, maybe make our brush a little bigger. And this cloth brush will also obey masking, so if you paint a mask so it doesn't affect some other areas. You sometimes do have to have a bit more horsepower on your computer to get it to work better, right? But with a decent computer, you can actually use the cloth brush if you want to actually start to get some cloth folding. It's not exactly the most real-time quite yet, although, like I said, a better computer can do it even better. But you see how you can kind of use strokes or just regular brush. I feel like dynamic's a bit faster and easier to work with. But you'll notice that you can start to get fabric kind of folding and bunching and all that stuff. So don't be afraid to just come in here and kind of just use this cloth brush to maybe give you some fabric folds a little bit. And of course, you can use all the different ones. You could try pinch perpendicular. You could try drag, right? So don't be afraid to maybe play with the cloth brush a little bit to see what kind of effects you can get with it. But I often will kind of do a pass to try to get some kind of nice randomized kind of bunching of cloth. And then I'll go in and kind of accentuate it, maybe add some of my own elements with a crease. But I wanted to make sure that you guys see that there is a cloth brush. There are a few changes you want to make. I usually like dynamic, prefer dynamic. You can use your strokes with it. And you do have different deformation types that you can play with. So keep that in mind. There is a cloth brush. It does work with the normal stuff. See, I can hold down Shift and I can go back in here and smooth a little bit to soften some areas up a little bit there. But you see that I can actually do a decent job of... And man, I screwed that up. I didn't realize I screwed that up. That is okay. You might want to mask, right, these things before you do it here so it doesn't really distort heavily your other sculpting, right? But at the end of the day, remember, this actually could do some cool stuff for you, right? I'm going to go back a couple steps. There is a cloth brush, though, and that cloth brush is it's pretty neat. I've gotten some decent results with it. I don't use it exclusively to do my cloth, but I'll use it to kind of get a good preliminary run. Because you see how it can actually get some cool kind of folds that you'd only get from cloth simulation. So believe it or not, there is actually a cloth brush. And I might not be able to go back far enough. Let's see here. There is actually a cloth brush, just basically just like ZBrushes. Your strokes will work with it. It will obey masking. So if you want to mask off areas to not be affected, you can do that. I'm just going to go back and hopefully be able to do that. If I don't, it's okay. It's just a lecture model. All right, there we go. All right. So I can always kind of smooth those out a little bit if I wanted to. Maybe just get a little quick extra there. But remember, masking will obey this as well, right? So take advantage of this cloth brush. It can give you some kind of neat effects and give you a little bit extra to work with. But it works with all your other tools, right? Smooth can still smooth parts of it out, right? You can still use masking with it, strokes. but I would switch to dynamic. And these are the different kind of like different brush types you have, right? The ones I found most useful are the things like grab, drag, and the pinch ones, right? Although expand, when you use it with the mask, can be kind of cool. All right, so I'm going to go back to crease, and I'm just going to do a little bit of creasing in here just to accentuate it. So it doesn't mean you can't come in here and use crease to kind of accentuate or bring out some elements a little bit more, right? So don't feel like that doesn't mean you can't use crease still to add elements to your cloth also. I've just found that using the cloth to kind of get a start and get some of that nice kind of randomized pushing and pulling can be great. And then I just come in here and kind of do my own little accentuating with crease. So you can actually use a combination of doing some crease stuff with your crease brush. But also, there is a cloth brush. The cloth brush, though, might be a little dangerous for you guys on your devices, so it is going to kind of be one of those things where if a cloth brush keeps crashing your blender, don't use it. Just do a bit of crease to get a bit of folding in there. Crease work's not too bad at folding, right? But the cloth brush is pretty cool. I use it as part of my cloth sculpting process. I don't rely on it exclusively. I'll do some regular sculpting, some crease, some adjustments, some smoothing out of stuff, but it does give you a lot of kind of nice random bunching that only cloth simulation can give you. So remember, there is a cloth brush, and there's even a cloth filter that you can use to apply to masks, right? So you can actually do a cloth filter with gravity or inflate. That works just like the filter with inflate. Kind of cool. Figure that wouldn't be bad for you guys to see a little bit of that. Okay, so at this point, we're basically ready to start to bake the normal maps, right? So I'll make sure to save that really quick. And I'm going to do it for the body first. Let's go to the body, click on it. Now, I'm going to go to UV editing, right? Because remember, one of the things we have in UV editing, we'll make sure to hit 4 for Object Mode UV Editor also. One of the things to remember is our text tools, right? This will make your life easier. Honestly, guys, get text tools, right? Remember, there's earlier videos I showed how to get it. You just do basically a search for text tools in Google for Blender, and it'll pop that kind of website up. Because one of the cool things about this is that you can actually come in here, and I didn't go much above 4 million, so I'll probably just leave 2048 because that'll get about 4 million. There is a section called Baking in Text Tools, right? And you'll see that it could use just the single multi-res, right? We have just one body with a multi-res modifier on it. And you'll notice that if I open up the baking section, we have our ability to bake a normal map. Now, if I click on this little preview of the tangent normal map, you'll see that this actually has object baking options. You could bake cavity or ambient occlusion, right? You could technically bake wireframe, but there's a better way using the freestyle renderer to do wireframes in Blender. So you actually could bake a lot of different map types. We'll keep it tangent normal just to keep our lives sane. But then we just hit bake. And it might take a few minutes to bake this. But what's cool is you don't have to worry about distance, right? There's no distance setting. Because it's part of the actual base body here and multi-resolution, it kind of already has a distance reference based on the low res, right? So I have found that this actually bakes pretty much perfect normal maps with no settings, like 98% of the time. Look at that. And, did it pretty fast. Look at that normal map, guys. Remember some of the issues we'd have with Mudbox's normal maps? Look at that thing. Pretty good. So text tools not only gives you things like rectify for straightening up pipes and hoses, as well as all these other things, and the cool ability to pick your resolution right there, or checker map previews, but it also has this bake feature. Now at this point, I can go to image, and I could save as, and we'll Save it to the desktop for now. And I'll just undo tangent. I don't need to have tangent. We're just baking one normal map. So quad body normal. And if you want to make it 16-bit, which will look nicer but also be a bigger file size, you can do that. 8-bit will work well enough for what we're going to do here. And it'll keep the file sizes down and the rendering time a little down. So I'll save as. And there's our body. And what's cool is I can now delete this multi-resolution modifier, so it goes to low res. I can go to shading, right? And remember, we created these materials for our body and our gear in an earlier video. But usually there's already one there. You can rename it. You can make a new one. And we see that this is the one that's currently assigned to this. I can go to Add, Texture, Image Texture. And there is our ability to find our normal map. So then I can go Open. And then I can go find where I baked my normal map. There it is. And now there's a normal map plugged in there. And now what I could do is I could take the color node, right, this yellow dot for color, left-click drag and plug it into normal. And now you'll see there's our normal. Now, we also want to plug in a proper normal map node for this. So I'm going to go to Add, and I'm going to go to Vector, Normal Map. Now remember, Blender's really cool that if you take a node that you haven't placed yet, you notice when you put it over this line, that line gets wider. This will automatically plug it in. You can tell it to use your quad body UVs, and you have a strength controller here. And there's your perfectly baked normal map. And that looks pretty convincing in relation to our sculpt, right? That's how this stuff actually works. And one of the things you'll see is that this shader tree in Blender is really user-friendly, right? Particularly compared to Maya. So go back to UV editing, and I'll go to the gear, so we can bake this one down. And the cool thing is all of our settings are already set up. We're baking 2048s, the tangent, the multi-resolution is already set to the proper height, bake, and now this will bake the new one out. So you guys see how easy Text Tools makes baking a normal map? And really all these map types. Look at that. There it is. Go to Image, Save As, and I'll just kind of... And it even gives you the naming convention, right? Oop. Cancel that really quick. File, Save As. Backspace us a little bit. There we go. And it already gives you a naming convention. Quad underscore gear underscore normal. There we go. And now that normal map's baked out, so we can get rid of multi-res. Go to shading. Quad gear, because the quad object's selected, so quad gear is already there. Remember, if you need to, you can always make a new material here. You can always pick which one's on it, right? So if I do this one, it'll look weird because it's not properly lined up, right? So you can actually change your materials on the fly like that. And you can make a new one right here. But I'm going to go to Add, Texture, Image Texture, Open. And we can go find the other normal map, Quad Gear. There we go. Then, of course, left-click drag on color to plug it into the normal section. There we go. Then go to Add, Vector, Normal Map. And as long as you put this node over that line, it'll go white instead of gray. It automatically plugs it in between them. You can click on that one to kind of switch to the proper normal map. And then Strength. And you have that great strength controller there that you can turn up and down. And now we have all of that cool detailing we were doing baked into a low-resolution texture. And one of the things when we go to texture UV editing is we can see what that normal map looks like, right? So remember how I talked about that predominant purple? If you ever want to paint a section of your normal map out, sample this color, right? And then you just paint it out, because like that purple outside of the UVs is 0. It's basically neutral. See all those reds, greens, blues, magentas? So we basically have turned all of that texturing into a model. Of course, we can go to texture right here, because that shade is just going to show the map on there. So you always go into that one for your Eevee. And there you can see we actually have our normal maps baked. So at this point, we'll probably stop, and we'll wait for... I was hoping to get to start to do quick color maps today, but didn't quite get there. But we finished our sculpting, we baked our normal maps out, and now we're ready to do some texturing next week. All right, so I'll end the video there, end the lecture there.